We are live. We are live on the Jeff Nosine podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Keith Bishop. Keith's very, very active on social media with tons of incredible tips for cancer prevention. As he says, cancer approved. And my wife actually, everybody that knows my story knows what since last November what I've been through and my journey. And my wife actually turned me on to Keith's Instagram account. And as I was watching, it was just it's something I just wanted to have a conversation with. Something I think that could add a ton of value to our listeners. But also, I'd love to hear your story. What got you onto that journey? So, welcome. Sure. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful. We have finally we're getting rain in Oklahoma, so it's really nice.
That is awesome. How's the weather there right now?
Well, it's light rain, and we got rain for a few days, so it's been actually pretty dry. It's cool, 40 degrees right now. It'll get up to 60, and that's the way this week's going to be.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're aware. We're based out of Toronto, Canada. So
yeah, I love this city. Yes.
Yeah, great city. So let's get right into it. Like,
sure.
How did it start off, and where did your interest? Is it something you've been through? Something a family member? What got you into this whole cancer prevention kind of drive in a way, right?
Sure. Yes. And so I started off. I'm a retired pharmacist, and I had a pharmacy in Mustang, Oklahoma. That's where I live still, and out in the country. And I had a pharmacy there, and then my family. My grandfather first had died of side effects of medications due to his prostate cancer treatment. He was taking an estrogen drug, which is, quote, anti-testosterone at the time, many years ago. And he ended up having a blood clot from this very high dose estrogen. They don't do this treatment any longer. Blood clot, heart attack, and died. And he was fairly young. He was in his 60s, just had retired. And then a little bit later, my father was diagnosed with early onset prostate cancer. And so he was paying attention. He went to a shopping mall and got a free exam. And the doctor said, I think I feel something. And so you need to go in. Sure enough, he was in his 50s. And so went in, and sure enough, prostate cancer, had prostate removed. He was on medications to, once again, anti-hormone treatments, different type to shut down his testosterone. And I started paying attention then in the pharmacy, and believe it or not, the internet was just becoming available, easy for me to get into the medical journal. So I started reading what creates, what's his family tendency? I've got 2 generations now ahead of me with prostate cancer. So I started reading, and it was all about food. And so, they were probably not eating ideally, and, soda pops, my family is like, we had dessert every night.
Yeah.
We had something sweet every night. They had soda pops. My grandfather was known as the candy man. And so, they were eating a lot of sugars. And that was one of the main things that kind of kept showing up as a cancer concern. And I was also going to continuing education programs for pharmacists about natural products, and just kept, feeling like I needed to learn more and more and more. I actually got started with arthritis. I was also certified in asthma and pulmonary management for pharmacists, special education programs and certifications, and thought I was going to be kind of going to that. But I kept kind of coming back to, asthma. My wife actually had asthma, and a terrible asthma attack one night. Almost went to the hospital, but we were able to kind of calm things down. Didn't have to go. I thought, okay, what if she went to the hospital? What would they have done? And one of the protocols is give a magnesium injection. That I've got magnesium. Yeah. So I started giving her magnesium, and no more asthma. I go, oh, okay. I really need to pay attention to this. And so I started going to more and more education programs for pharmacists about natural products. And I felt God just tell me I needed to go into it. And I prayed and said, God, if you want me to do this, I need somebody to buy the pharmacy. And within the month, the guy walked in and said, Keith, you want to sell the pharmacy? I said, yep, definitely. So within a couple of months, I'd sold the pharmacy. I took a couple of months off. We had our first grandchild, and skied. I ski a lot, snow ski, and skied many days, and then went and started remodeling and opened up a little practice. I had a small front end and an office, and just started doing natural treatments, and then went to certification and as a clinical nutritionist, and that was about the year 2000. So I was a pharmacist for 15 years, sold the pharmacy, and then started doing full-time nutrition assessments, evaluations, and custom recommendations.
Obviously, you've pushed a lot of attention towards cancer, and
Yes.
I want to just, for somebody that's been through it now, and I was very unaware of how our system worked. In Canada, obviously, we have a healthcare system, which is great, but could not be great also because you're just a number in the system. Because we have free healthcare, not free through our taxes, but you're a number in the system. So you have to push very, very hard to get in there. And then once you're in there, you realize with oncology, even though they're great, they're doing their job, they're very set to science, as they call science.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you sit down with your oncologist and you try to talk nutrition, and they do not want to hear anything about that. They're right. A, B, C, treatment, go. And they don't want to talk about nutrition. They don't want to talk about environment. They don't want to talk about detoxification. They don't look at any other aspects of your health journey, your terrain. They just look at, this is science. If 7 men, 10 men do this, these are the results. They just go by what their studies show. Do you see any change in that?
There's a little bit of a change, and same thing in the United States.
Yeah.
And so there's a protocol. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, they have a protocol, the American Medical Association, and if they don't follow that protocol and something goes wrong, they could be sued because they didn't follow that protocol. And so it's a very same thing here, but we do have practitioners, we call them functional medicine practitioners, that for some reason, maybe like me with a family history, they decided to move into another area and are willing to do things outside the normal channels, but they're not associated with the hospitals. And so it's rare. Some of them have, a few of them have a very big practice and even, maybe train other practitioners, but it's still outside that normal thing. And so part of it is, they just don't know. And, doctors are really not that much different than the rest of us. I mean, you have expertise in several things, in business and sports, and, ask me something about boxing. I don't know it. That's not my area. You do know several things. And so I know about pharmacy and natural type things. I know about horses. I ride horses. It's fairly new for me. I learned originally as a city boy, but moved to the country and learned. And so, but doctors are the same way. They only have a certain knowledge and or interest, and they could even be punished if they step outside that normal thing. So, but they're just like us. They only have so much of an interest until they are challenged for some reason. They're not going to be stepping outside that. Here in Oklahoma City, there is one hospital that did hire a nurse practitioner to start a natural program in their cancer program. And matter of fact, probably the largest hospital in Oklahoma City. I've also given them CE programs in the mornings for the breakfast to teach the doctors about what the public or what they're learning about and some science behind that. We call it evidence-based. And so they hired this nurse practitioner, which in Oklahoma, a nurse practitioner can have a private practice. They can actually assess and diagnose and prescribe. And I love nurse practitioners.
Yeah.
But they won't let her do that. And so the only thing she can do is counsel on what to eat. So she can't go into anything else. They're not willing to go that next step.
For the supplements and whatnot, right?
Supplements, and yes, more supplements, and into that. So matter of fact, her goal was to start a nutrition program, and that's kind of what she was led to believe. But enough of the practitioners there, even though the medical director, the one that hired her, is actually he has referred patients to me because he says, I don't know enough. Go talk to Keith. And so he doesn't want to kind of get involved. He recognizes, because he's seen some good results, he recognizes the importance, but he just doesn't know enough and he can't recommend it.
Do you, when you look at this and you look at obviously chemos and radiation, I went through radiation. They said I was young and healthy enough to they bulked it up, and we only did a 5-day pretty intense radiation with myself to get me, I guess, prepped for surgery, and then I did surgery 3.5, 4 weeks later. When you look at for example, the radiations and the surgeries and all that stuff like that, there's so many side effects, and them, when I talk about them, oncology or radiologists, if they were to work with a naturopath or a nurse practitioner and really focus on supplements that could work hand in hand with some of these, it could be so beneficial, especially for people. And that's what frustrates me, because when I went through the radiation, I got something called radiation enteritis, and for 8 days, and especially where my radiation was in my rectum, 8 days, started 3 days after. For 8 days, I was probably in the worst shape of my life. Like, I was in the bathroom probably 30 times a day for about 8 days. And this, after the fact, when I go back and look at it, there were certain things I could have done to really help mitigate these symptoms and help really relieve some of these symptoms, but nobody gave me no direction.
Right.
And it's frustrating, right? And now that I wish I'd put more interest into learning more before I did it. But I mean, when you're talking to anybody that's going through this right now, would you obviously recommend to reach out to a naturopath and work hand in hand with the oncology?
Yes, I think working together is the perfect situation. So, there are certain ways to eat, maybe lifestyle, but more like eating, and certain supplements that can reduce side effects of chemotherapy, radiation, and then and actually some of those very same things can actually enhance the effectiveness of that. And even I was blessed, even many years ago, even teaching radiologists about that, and how there's a few basic things that their patients could do. It was more of a curiosity, and they didn't ask me back again. So I gave them the science. There's medical studies showing that doing things, can help out. So it's not going to be an easy type thing, but it takes the consumer to drive the market. So here, practitioners are stepping outside. There are functional medicine practitioners, but they're not oncologists. And so a practitioner will help, set up natural type things and treatments and lifestyle and supplements to go with the different stages of cancer treatments.
I'm gonna ask you a question, and then I mean, a huge part of this podcast is, I mean, I want to ask you a ton of questions about supplements and food, and we're gonna just go through diets and stuff and just give information to our audience. But coming from the field of the pharmaceutical world, because that was essentially your bread and butter,
right,
to now where you are now, do you feel that, or do you have any mindset that the pharmaceutical world, or the pharmaceutical billion-dollar industry is controlling a lot of this, and they're putting a stop on a lot of this? And I'll get into why I'm saying this in a sec.
Yeah, they could. It's a money game.
Yeah.
And so, whether, everybody has to make money. You and I have to make money. The drug companies have to make money. The doctors make money. The hospitals make money. Everybody's going to make money. And drug companies, they, I like to believe in good, in people, but, there are bad people out there too. And there are bad companies. Many drugs, especially chemotherapy drugs, actually come from natural products. And they come up with a way to get a patent on that so they can make money off of it, get protection with that patent. Then they'll tweak the chemical structure just a little bit and test that. So they get another patent on another drug, before that one runs out. And then they'll tweak it again and get another patent. So you'll see, like, one drug is going through several different processes over the last 30 years, same basic natural product originally, but it's, it's evolving into something else. But it's a money game, and the amount of money is unbelievable, and
Yeah.
it's also very expensive. And so in the United States, the drug companies pay their fees to the FDA, who controls the all everything. And so, so the drug companies and doctors sit on the FDA boards, and so it's kind of a bad situation. But it's going to take.
It's like a monopolization of the market, right?
Yes, it is, but like anything like that, it does take the public to drive that interest. And so even doctors even now are starting to change and becoming natural practitioners, because that's what the public's wanting. I'm seeing that.
I just find is the public is so uneducated. I mean, you could go
Sure.
through, I mean, the whole crisis with COVID and how what's 70-80% of the public was vitamin D deficient and stuff like that. I think the public in general are very uneducated. And what I mean by that is they go to their oncologist, and
Mhm.
oncologist says A, B, and C, and they just go by A, B, and C. The first thing an oncologist said to me was, "Don't change." I had already, when I first saw my oncologist, I was about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks after I was diagnosed with the dual diagnosed when they found the tumor, and when I saw him, it was about 2.5 weeks, and I pushed for that to get that appointment. And the first thing they said to me was, and same with my family physician, he goes, "Don't change your diet. Don't change it." They didn't. I was already eating decently healthy, but
Mhm.
for them to say, "Don't change your diet," that was just came out of their mouth so naturally. So they're saying that to every single person.
Right.
And it's something that was just opened my eyes. Was every time I go to oncology and I'm sitting in a room with 100 people waiting to get chemo or treatment or see an oncologist do their blood work, and you got these rooms that are absolutely packed, and you look around and everybody's got a donut, everybody's got a coffee, everybody's got a Coca-Cola or a Sprite, and you're looking around, you're like, these people are all eating junk still.
Right.
And it goes to our medical system. I mean, I was out of surgery at 2:30 p.m. It was Thursday afternoon, February 16th. And I got to my room, and maybe an hour and a half later, my wife and my two kids came up, and the nurse came in and says, "Oh, do you want anything?" And I already had prepped my meals because I knew I was not going to eat the hospital food. And I'm like, whatever. And she goes, "I'll just bring something for you." And the three things she brought to me was a chocolate chip muffin, Sprite, and a Jello. That was the three things she brought on a plate. And I looked at her and I go, "Do you realize what I'm in here for?" And she goes, "Yeah, you just had A, B, C, these things happen." And I go, "I just got cancer removed from me. You're bringing me three things full of sugar." I go,
Mhm.
take this away." And it just drives me insane when I saw that. But most people would just intake it.
That's right. Yes, I've seen the very same thing. And so, matter of fact, I've had friends, too young, die of cancer, and my mother died of a glioblastoma with brain cancer. So I went with her for the radiation treatments, the surgery treatments, and saw all of that. And never once did they ever say anything about what to eat and what to drink. And often, even during chemotherapy, they would give patients ice cream. Oh, your stomach's upset. Here, have some ice cream. And so the staff doesn't know, the doctors don't know or won't take the time to learn. And so it really takes it takes a revolution. And then that's one thing on Instagram I'm seeing, is just like tons of people, and a lot of them are going, well, some of them are not very nice, but they're totally disagreeing with me. I say, well, what proof do you have for that? Just because you believe that's how you were raised, that's how I was raised, eating those things too. Uh, but what's your proof? And they can't answer. They really don't have proof. It's just that they like to do it, and they were raised that way, maybe. And but there is proof that we do need to be making changes in what we eat, our lifestyle, and targeted supplements.
When you're looking at let's talk about targeted supplements, because that's something I've really put a lot of focus on and study on, and working with the natural path and trying to learn as much and testing, and it's just been this bundle of knowledge I've been intaking. Where Let's talk about what supplements and what your recommendations are, and what's the purpose of them. Let's just talk about supplements. What's your top 10 let's go to supplements?
Well, let's see. So probably number one, and the one actually that most matter of fact, drug companies are studying these things too.
Yeah.
And most of the studies are actually done by drug companies. They're trying to come up with enhanced absorption. And probably one of the most famous ones is going to be curcumin.
Yeah.
The active ingredient in turmeric.
Yeah.
Anti-inflammatory. It helps with so many different aspects of cancer. But it's an herb, and it's really not well absorbed. And so there has to be tricks done with it. So,
black pepper,
curry is not going to be well absorbed. And so the some supplement companies will add black pepper. Black pepper can increase absorption anywhere from 200 to 2,000%, depending on the person.
Mm-hmm.
But black pepper also affects not only absorption, but how well the body gets rid of curcumin. So actually, black pepper is working in the liver. So now we have a potential interaction with other drugs. And so, yes, so black pepper can also create an interaction and increase blood levels of some drugs. So we have to be a little more careful about black pepper. My favorite is actually a curcumin where they, so a lot of science is going into these things, but there's a company that actually binds curcumin with proteins and changes it from an herb, really more like a fat soluble herb, into now it's bound physically to a protein. And we love to absorb protein.
Yeah.
From the gut. It's easy. And so they're getting much higher absorption of curcumin and other herbs by doing this. They call it a protein scaffold. And so that's my favorite. And
what do you know which company that's doing this? The name of it?
Yes, it's Ultra Botanica. ultrabotanica.com. And so actually the researcher, owner of that is a out of medical research. He's not a medical doctor, but he was doing medical research. And he and a partner came up with this idea about, well, once again, the researching how to increase absorption of things. And so Oklahoma Memorial Research Foundation, they love looking at natural things.
Yeah.
And he was associated with them. He's now has his own company, stepped outside. But even this research foundation even has a new version of vitamin A that they're testing for ovarian cancer. So once again, there's a lot of research going on. It's a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
He took his knowledge and developed a new company, and they actually have several different products. It's called Onco Adjunct, and they're based off of this protein scaffold to increase the absorption of the herbs. And even maybe, and goal is actually decrease some of the side effects of some of these herbs that I'll talk about in just a second.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite. That's the one that I take.
Yeah, I take that as well. I take that too. I take it twice a day. Not that brand, but I take turmeric with a very low dose of black pepper twice a day.
Yeah, and there's many different brands and many great companies out there.
Yeah.
And definitely. So the only probably major issue about curcumin is that it does have a tendency to prolong bleeding. And so you have to stop it at least 1 week before surgery, if not even 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If you're taking a high dose. And so that's probably my number one favorite supplement. And there's some studies showing that it can enhance radiation treatments and decrease the side effects. Chemotherapy, similar type thing.
Yeah.
So now officially, in the United States, and you have a drug administration too, we can't say that turmeric, or curcumin, is a drug. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure, or prevent a disease and things like that. So that's an FDA disclaimer because the FDA has not approved it.
Yeah, of course.
So it's not a drug. So the supplements have that little warning in the United States on there. So I do want to say that. And also, another disclaimer, you should check with your healthcare practitioner. That's very important because,
of course.
we don't know. who's watching this and what they're doing and about their body and their medications and their treatment. So
Yeah.
so yes, you do need to check with a healthcare practitioner that knows your situation.
Of course.
So that's very important.
I say we use that as our massive disclaimer for this whole podcast.
Yes, exactly.
So we're good. We're good from there.
With your healthcare practitioner. It's very important. And so, and that's what I do. And I check those things out.
Yeah, of course.
In my appointments and evaluate, everything about that person and to help, make those recommendations. And so that's very important.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned sugar earlier about, sugar, and it's kind of a controversy. And, some people say that sugar, feeds cancer. Well, cancer will use the same nutrients, anything in our body, that our cells have to have for energy. Cancer cells will use that. So it's not just sugar, proteins, sugars. There's specific amino acids that we could kind of play with sometimes to create a little bit of a starvation mode for cancer cells, and then even fats. So, those tumor cells have to have all the same nutrients as everything else. So we have to kind of play with that. The cancer cells also fast growing. So they are going to require probably more sugar than regular cells.
Yeah, of course.
So if we do more, like you mentioned, the Mediterranean type diet, in a ketogenic type approach, now the cancer cells are like, feed me, and they're not able to do as good. So that's part of a synergistic effect. So if we can do, the food, and lifestyle and supplements and other treatments, medical treatments, we're hitting that from many different ways and get a lot better results. So along the sugar thing is, yes, being overweight, the fat cells from being overweight creates inflammation. Yeah. Inflammation stimulates cancer growth. So, and sugar provides a easy to use fuel for cancer cells and tumors. So probably the next favorite supplement I have is actually berberine.
Interesting.
So berberine is an herb that helps to move sugars into your cells. With that, now the sugars aren't sitting around. So adult onset diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is insulin resistance, and insulin isn't able to move the sugars into the cells for the energy. So the sugars are sitting around here, and that's the insulin resistance. So the insulin's not working good to get the sugars in. Well, the berberine helps move those sugars into the cells. Number one, so that sugar is not sitting around for hours and hours and hours. So a person can typically lose weight easier if they're taking berberine. And then berberine itself also has some anti-inflammatory effects and directly anti-cancer impacts. So it's along the lines of even a lot of doctors now in the United States in, I call it healthy aging or anti-aging medicine. They prescribe a drug called metformin for the same effect. And so metformin does have some anti-cancer impacts. Once again, it lowers blood glucose. Yeah. So like you're choosing keto, and I don't quite go to keto, but I definitely follow.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I do the Mediterranean approach because I'm not trying to lose weight as well. So I do balance about 20% extra carbs in there a day, healthy carbs. When you're talking about berberine, doesn't cinnamon have a very similar effect to your body?
It does, yes. There can be some side effects. There has to be a chemical that has to be pulled out of the cinnamon. So cinnamon as a spice, I think, is great. You can take it as a supplement. They have to pull an ingredient out of that. I'm drawing a blank on the name of that ingredient. Okay. That can actually be toxic. And actually cinnamon does have, I think I made a post about it. It does have some cancer effects, but berberine seems to have a much greater impact.
Okay. When I'm talking about the cancer, I'm talking about cinnamon. When I read up on it, is the effect of how it helps you absorb the sugar quicker sugar too. Yeah. So I mean, mm-hmm. I just love it as a spice. So I'll put it on top of my oatmeal, or I'll put it on top of certain stuff just to get the extra out of it, right? Which is very easy to do. It adds a flavor to it, right? Which I think it's it's a supplement. I don't even call it a supplement. It's a spice, but it's something that could be easily used, and there's so much benefit, and to it, right? For somebody to add in.
Exactly. Oh yes, yes. Cinnamon's great. And matter of fact, most spices are wonderful.
Yeah.
And when I post about a spice, I can just about guarantee that there's going to be a benefit to it. So
Yeah.
spices and herbs and things like that are really great. So
Number three.
number three is quercetin.
You're giving me a lot of stuff that I've never even heard of, which is pretty amazing because I thought my knowledge base was pretty good. What's it called?
Quercetin.
Quercetin. Okay.
Quercetin. My Okie accent maybe not very very good too. So, but it's QUERCETIN. And so, matter of fact, it has become very popular because it has some antiviral activities too.
Interesting.
So
is this derived from a plant? Like, what is this derived from originally?
Yes. Well, actually, it's found in small amounts in onions and apples, and then, but there's a couple of not common plants that they found that actually have a lot of, well, even grapes, blueberries, have all kinds of many different nutrients.
Yeah.
But quercetin is one of those ingredients. But quercetin is a significant anti-cancer, antiviral. And I have to admit, I take all three of these every day. I'm in the public every day, up close.
Yeah, me too.
We don't wear masks, and so it's a natural antihistamine.
Interesting. Okay.
So I've had people come in with just whole body rash, and they've got to go to work. They don't want to take diphenhydramine, a natural antihistamine that could cause drowsiness. And so we'll give them a high dose of quercetin, and many times it's amazing how fast that'll work. No drowsiness to it.
Interesting.
And it does have anti-cancer, activities too. A lot of cell studies. They'll take cancer cells and inject them into the little animals, sad to say, and then treat them with these herbs. And now and the drug companies will do this. So they say, oh, well, yeah, that does work. So now let's make a synthetic analog so we can get a patent, on that.
Yeah.
So quercetin is fantastic.
Very, very, very good. Let's do number four.
Number four.
I think we're going to cut it off at 5, and I want to ask you some other questions.
There's a lot because, we can only take so many things, but it's important. The synergy I mentioned earlier, synergy means more than just additive. So, so one thing works this good. If you add a second thing on, additive just means it works this good.
Yeah.
But if we can add 2 or 3 and they work synergistically, it's this good.
Yeah.
And so even, adding some of these things on when appropriate to, chemotherapy and radiation, you can get some synergistic effects.
Yeah.
With these type items, with the drugs and radiation. Now, but we have to be careful. I have to admit, even certain they call them chemotherapy, but more like immune type products, along with curcumin, may not be appropriate. So once again, we do have to check, on that. Older, truly like major damage type chemotherapy drugs that are a little bit older, definitely work with that. And also, we do what's called multi-drug resistance, MDR.
Yeah.
So herbs are known to be very effective at helping with that. It's that synergistic effect. So let's see, number 4. So let's see. Probably, vitamin, and I'm going to put them together, but probably vitamin D and K.
K2, yeah.
K2.
Yeah.
Although, they both show significant anti-cancer impacts and reducing the risk of cancers. But in cancer treatment, I can't really say that. And so the studies, and they've really tried, they've been doing a lot of studies. They're not really seeing that taking a high dose of vitamin D, getting a blood level up to, in the United States, we go up to 100. European and Canadian numbers use different numbers.
We go one. We have. I mean, that was one of the first things I did is check all my vitamin levels, right?
Right.
And I did a full panel prior to doing my colonoscopy. I did a full panel. Everything. My markers were all perfect. So just for everybody out there, just quick note is you do your blood work, you do your urine samples, you do all that stuff. You're not going to always find especially if it's a tumor-based cancer, you're not going to find it because my levels were all perfect. I was a perfect
Right.
weight, perfect height, everything was just right. And you didn't find it. So sometimes your intuition, sometimes going that extra mile with the colonoscopy, even at a younger age, doing extra things. If you have that intuition or you're not feeling right, go that extra distance and make sure you do your test. Do not be stubborn about it. And I had a doctor that told me, Jeff, your blood levels, everything's perfect. You're in amazing health. You probably have hemorrhoids. Don't stress about it. And I'm the one to push to do the colonoscopy. If I didn't push it, where would I be now? Right. So those are all this just out there. But yeah, vitamin D is something in Canada. I mean, I wouldn't say in Canada, but my naturopath, the number we wanted to be was between 150 to 250, and I'm at 210 or 212 or whatever. So I was at a good number. But yeah, so they recommended to be higher here. I don't know how in Canada, or maybe it was just my doc that recommended it. But yeah, we try to keep it around the 200. At least I do.
Right. Yeah, and we do have different measurement systems.
Yeah.
Picograms, pico or something versus nanograms, something like that. So there is a different measurement system between the two countries. But that's more like almost like a prevention type thing. So vitamin D is a sunshine chemical. Our skin can make it when the sun hits the skin, and especially with a northern latitude like you'll have a few months of sunshine. Yeah, and so. The further north you go, typically the less sun and the lower the vitamin D levels have a tendency to be. Yeah. But then it takes like whole body sunshine exposure. So where we're at, for me to get enough sunshine, I have to be in my Speedo swimming suit for 30 minutes, midday sun in the summertime. Yeah. Yeah. The only way I'm going to get enough vitamin D for that day. So I do have to supplement. My wife has to supplement. And matter of fact, something very interesting about this is the darker skinned a person, the more vitamin D they need to take. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So African Americans and Native Americans, are really low in vitamin D. And so I'm not, calling out a race at all, but it's just a fact. And so their skin, that darkness actually is to protect them from the sun. Yeah. Because for thousands of years, they've been more of an equator-based population, more sunshine all the time. Yeah. And versus the European like me, light skin, light color eyes, I've got to maximize my sunshine and to make my vitamin D. We have to have it. And it does have some anti-cancer type activities. Vitamin K2 is kind of like the new kid on the block for that. I like both of them, especially if you're pushing your vitamin D level a little bit on the high side. Now that we've been doing this for 20 years, we're learning that high vitamin D might increase the risk of calcification inside the blood vessel. Yeah. And vitamin K2 works better at that, at pulling that plaque off and moving it into the bones. And so, so be careful about pushing that vitamin D too high unless you're doing the vitamin K2 with it. And K2 is a longer acting. It doesn't impact clotting like vitamin K1 could. Yeah. There's another potential interaction. Even vitamin K2 may, decrease some effectiveness of some anti-clotting drugs. Number 5. We'll end at a number 5 because I want to talk about some food. Yeah, number 5. Let's see here. Let me kind of go through my protocol. I take probably more pills than you do. So, with my family, my wife also family history of cancer. Her dad died of prostate cancer. And her brother had another cancer, and he died of complications of some of his treatments from cancer. So we're both, pretty active in supplements and trying to do the right things. And so let's see here. Green tea. Okay, I do that daily. Yeah, well, organic green tea. Organic green tea, but it takes a lot of green tea to have a significant impact. Yeah. And so I don't know if you saw my post about that one or not, but so I think you said something about 6 cups a day or something. Yes, exactly. Which is so hard to intake. It is. It sure is. And so matcha may be an option. It's more concentrated. Matcha tea is ground up leaves, if you want to think of it that way. So there's a lot more surface area. So the smaller the leaf, the more absorption of the active ingredients, or the better they'll dissolve into the liquid. So matcha is a very fine powder,
Yeah.
and not everybody's going to like matcha tea.
Yeah.
And a little bit more caffeine in it, stronger. So that's one option. But the Japanese and Oriental studies found that it takes 10 of their little cups a day to have an impact on cancer. So translate that into more like Northern America. So now we're talking about like 5 cups a day to have an impact. Well, so it works synergistically with these other herbs and can have a significant anti-cancer impact. Now that's the one herb that this Ultra Botanica, they haven't done yet. And so they've got these other herbs already, but that's a new one that I just talked to the owner last week. I did a podcast with them last week. That's going to be coming out this week. And the green tea is going to be one of their next ones to do, trying to increase the absorption of it without the caffeine effect.
Yeah. I mean, the caffeine effect too. I mean, when we talk about green tea, a lot of people, if they can't handle the caffeine later and after any time after 3-4 in the afternoon, they're not having a great night's sleep, right? Especially if you're taking that much green tea.
Right.
Where is your mindset with therapeutic, I guess, treatment, mistletoe?
It's interesting. So it's one of my favorite topics about.
Okay.
Actually, one of the main ingredients in it is actually a lectin, and lectins can be impact the body, and they do have an anti-cancer effect, number one. But lectins also can have a little bit of an anti-absorption issue when you take it internally into the gut, and it can, for a few people, can damage the gut lining. But I'm doing the research, and actually, like a Mediterranean diet, high in lectins, no issue with colitis, reduces the risk of colitis and some other things. So I'm doing a lot of posting and researching. I'm starting to question if the whole lectin is bad for everybody. That's not the case. And so no matter where a person hears something, you have to do some people call it critical thinking. And if somebody's making or selling a lot of supplements, or they're a surgeon, whatever, okay, you have to evaluate what they're saying and why they're saying it.
What the benefit is to them.
What is the benefit of that? Even just a news website, they've got ads on the side.
Yeah, of course.
And in the middle. Okay. So you have to evaluate that. So the lectins may not be as bad as we've been told recently. The research is really not holding up to that I'm seeing. So, but mistletoe definitely has, some anti-cancer effects. It's difficult to find in the United States. And
see, it's something that, I mean, if you focus on European countries, Germany, stuff like that, I mean, there's a lot of studies where this has been almost a replacement for chemo in some of these countries.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's a lot of research behind it. And so that's where, government agencies are kind of controlling what's happening, those agencies are controlled by drug companies and medical groups.
Yeah.
So in Germany, actually in the United States and maybe Canada too, we have a lot more access to vitamins and minerals and supplements.
Yeah.
In Germany and in Europe, they require a doctor's order.
Interesting.
And so much more. You can get a few things over there, but to get high, what we consider therapeutic doses of things, probably will require a doctor's order, a prescription.
Interesting.
Okay, so that prescription is the hook for that doctor. So if the public is demanding and they want mistletoe, there's going to be more doctors that are going to do it there.
Interesting.
Okay, and there's enough science behind it. So the first herb kind of thing I got started with was actually glucosamine many years ago, arthritis. And I was a guy came in and said, Keith, I've got elbow problems. What should I take? I said, well, I went to a CE program and they talked about glucosamine. There's some studies in Europe, in Germany, showing that glucosamine helps with arthritis. Here, take this. He took it. He came back a month later and said, Keith, look, I'm cured. And I said, well, what did I give you? So I couldn't remember. Yeah. And I said, well, it was that glucosamine. Oh, okay. So I went back and read that again. All those studies were coming from Germany. So they're more ahead of the time. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of cancer patients do go to Germany and get other treatments
Yeah.
that are not approved for here yet. And matter of fact, one particular person, he went to Germany probably 20 years ago for a treatment that one version of it is just now being approved here in the United States.
Why is that? Why are we so? Why is North America so behind on that? Is this once again a pharmaceutical companies is all $1 billion industry and they're just pushing their agenda?
I think that's part of it. Definitely. So we have no idea about the money involved. We have no idea about that.
There is a blood test. There's a few in the U.S. There's a blood test here called Signata. I'm probably butchering that. My naturopath told me about it. So I did some research. I found one of the series of labs we have here called Life Lab actually does it. So I went to my physician. I got him to do the requisition for it. I went to do it. I walked in. The young lady there says, "This is not covered by your OHIP, which is our coverage." She goes, I go, "Okay, that's fine." I was kind of aware of that. I go, "Whatever it is, I'll pay for it." And this is it finds your active circulating tumor cells in your blood.
Mm-hmm.
So what they say with studies that it's essentially it could find if you're going to have a tumor almost 2 years in advance, you could see the activity already in your blood. And I'm like, they have a test like that that's available. Like, why are more people not making it part of their annual blood test? When I went to do it, they said it was $4,500.
Whoa.
I said, would I do it? I go, let me talk to my oncologist first and say, what could he use of this? Because I was going through the situation where I did radiation. I did my surgery. Everything was removed. 60% of my rectum was removed. 23 lymph nodes were removed. Even though I just had a centimeter tumor in there, my surgeon said, "Jeff, you're young. Let me clean you all up and get you good for good." And that was what we decided. And my oncologist was pushing as a precaution chemo after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to him and I said, "Listen," I goes, this is a blood test. Have you heard of it?" He was aware of it. He was like, "Yeah." He goes, "There's studies of it." He goes, "That is honestly probably the future of cancer research." But he goes, "You're about 10 years ahead of your time." And I'm like,
right.
"What?" He goes, "You could come here with this test right now and I could see the results, but I don't know what to do with it."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, seriously, I go, you have these already, you have these tests. And there's another one in the US, and my mind, one of my friends is a physician in California, and he's the one that's turned me on to this one. God, I can't think of the name right now. It has like a European Italian name to it. And this blood test, same thing. It just it finds circulating cancer cells in your blood. Mm-hmm. And once again, it's not covered by the FDA. But in the US, there's private clinics that you go there and do it. I think it's like $1,250 every time you do this test. Right. So if you have a little more money, it's something you could do on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And so these are available, and it drives me crazy that they like you said, 20 years. It took 20 years for this to come to North America. It's frustrating for somebody that's going through, and it's frustrating to know that the science is there, and this is delay after delay after delay after delay, because it's you're looking at these pharmaceutical companies pushing everything, trying to delay as much as they can because they're trying to profit on what they have in front of them at the moment, right?
Right, exactly. And there's all types of these new tests come out. I mean, there's many of them. I see them in the news all the time. Yeah. And I click on it. Okay. Well, what is this new test? Oh, well, it's not available. But they're doing the research. I mean, so yes, it's going to be coming out, but it's going to take a long time. And part of the problem here is insurance. So insurance has to approve the tests also. And so, but insurance is a money company.
But they work hand in hand with pharmaceutical companies.
Well,
in Canada, they do, because insurance, everything in Canada is either covered through insurance or through the OHIP, right? So there's a lot of studies that show, a lot of proof that shows they work hand in hand together, right?
Well, actually, yes, but I'm throwing out that actually I think that they actually they don't like each other, and so
seriously,
yeah. So what the drug companies, the United States drug companies, are charging exceedingly high prices for drugs.
Of course.
Because we have the drug company, we have the patient, we have the doctor, we have the insurance company. They're all separate. And so the drug company says, okay, well, we're just going to charge whatever we want to. And the insurance company, I mean, we got it approved and they're going to have to pay for it. And so they can just keep raising the prices for what the market will bear. Well, the market is not the doctor. It's not the patient.
It's insurance.
It's the insurance company. And so the insurance company is having to pay it, but they're balking at it. So they're denying, some drugs. They don't want to pay for some of these new drugs that are very expensive when they come out, and treatments, and medication treatments and surgeries. They're delaying them, and actually, yet we've had a lot of people from Canada come to the United States for surgeries because it's easy to get here. Matter of fact, we have surgery clinics even here in Oklahoma City that don't accept insurance. I mean, it's a very well-known surgery center, and they do elective surgeries without insurance, and people are willing to pay for that because they can get it done when they want it, and get a discount price because they don't have to charge extra because the insurance companies doesn't want to pay that and get this battle going on. And so, I can't really say that I don't think the insurance company and the drug company are with each other, but actually they're more like fighting each other.
Interesting.
But that's, but the insurance company is a financial institution. They don't want to pay for stuff because if they pay for stuff, they're losing money.
Yeah. It's a prop. Yeah. Their bottom line, of course.
They're a profit company and shareholders and things like that. So they don't really want to pay for this drug that the drug company keeps jacking the price up. And even lab companies here in the United States, in most states, maybe a vitamin D blood test. I sent to this one doctor that is the head medical director of a cancer center. I sent a patient back to him many years ago and said, "Would you do a vitamin D3 blood test?" And the doctor said, "Sure." And the blood test was like $272, and insurance refused to pay it.
Yeah.
Because he was not a female with osteoporosis. So they refused to pay it. So he had to pay $272. Well, I told the doctor, well, I wish I would have known that because I could have gotten it done for $79 at a local lab cash.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what's going on. They're inflating prices to the drug companies and labs and surgeries. I mean, just everything. It's really a bad situation. I don't know the answer to it. And so the Canadian system could be better, but y'all are not happy either. So
no, it's I don't even want to get into that, but I mean, it's the delays. You're a number in our system. I was able to do in 30 days what most people take 3 to 4 months to do. I mean, that's because I put my entrepreneurial hat in, I put my hustle on, and I was on the phone 24/7, calling. So in 30 days, I had done my colonoscopy. I booked a surgeon. I had booked oncology. I booked a radiologist. I did my MRI. I did my CT scan, 2 of them, one for markers, and I did my first oncology appointment, all within the first 30 days. And the reason I did that was I was on the phone 24/7 and I was harassing them until they booked me in.
Right. We have the same problem here. It takes too long.
Yeah.
Once a person's diagnosed with cancer, because they already had cancer probably years before they were even diagnosed, and now they have to wait 2 or 3 months to start chemotherapy or surgery or radiation.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's a crime.
Yeah, 1,000% agree. 1,000% agree. There's one more thing I want to talk about. Then I want to talk about food. High concentration of vitamin C, IV. What's your knowledge on that? It's something that actually my naturopath is trying to push on me because we started that conversation before. So I did the radiation, 5-day high intensity radiation. I did my surgery, and I decided to not do the chemo route. I'm going diet. I mean, I'm as much as a cancer-free lifestyle, from even plants, snake plants all over my office, my house, to filters, to the way water. Like I'm going overboard because I feel like in my mind, every little something's going to give me a 0.001% chance. I want to take that opportunity because I don't want to have that regret 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 years from now, right? So I'm trying to give myself
Right.
every opportunity. So one thing my naturopath is pushing on me is high dose of vitamin C IV. I've been doing some research on it. There's a lot of questions about it, right?
Mhm.
Where's your mindset with that?
Well, so matter of fact, even some of these herbs that I was talking about, at low doses, a spice or an herb, is okay. But we get up to, and so one potential side effect about berberine, if you take a high dose, it will create diarrhea because berberine has an antiseptic effect in the gut. So
Yeah.
we've used it for many years for bacterial overgrowth and yeast infections and parasites in the intestines. So that's where this one company, they're trying to make it so they can go with a lower dose, but get it absorbed when they do this protein scaffold. So um, uh, so some of them actually can become pro-oxidants, meaning they can damage cells. Okay, so a cancer cell, if it's growing real quick, and we can actually force in physics an electron onto it, now it's damaged. Now we want the immune system to get rid of that damaged cell. So vitamin C is that type of a thing. So it's actually damaging lectins, mistletoe, beans,
Yeah.
legumes, whatever, nuts and seeds, bind to the cancer cell, damage the cell a little bit, and now it's our immune system responsibility to get that and get it out of there. Okay, so vitamin C at a high dose, we're talking about many thousands of
Yeah.
milligrams IV, will also become a pro-oxidant, force electrons onto cells, and in this case, those fast-growing tumor cells can't handle that, and they don't have an opportunity to repair. And then the immune system, can recognize that damaged cell and help get rid of it. So high dose vitamin C orally creates diarrhea
Yeah.
because it's in the gut. We don't absorb it that well, and we got to get rid of it. Diarrhea, flush that out. Most actually us, and I think it's guinea pigs, are the only mammals that don't make many thousands of milligrams a day without having to eat oranges.
Yeah.
And so, like a chimpanzee, similar size to us, they're going to make 10,000 milligrams a day from eating bananas.
Interesting.
Because vitamin C is actually, sugar rather, is used by the chimpanzee to make vitamin C. There's actually a similarity in the chemical structure of vitamin C and sugar. So they're both can go into the cells. Well, the chimpanzee and most other mammals can actually make vitamin C from sugar or carbs. Humans can't. I don't know why God did that. But anyway, so I have some theories, but we won't go into that. Probably don't have time. But we can't do that. But we can get an injection of that many thousands, tens of thousands of milligrams of vitamin C and not have any complications. And it does have there's a lot of science behind it. A lot of clinics, offer that as treatments and practitioners in the United States.
Do you think that, I mean, are you looking at that as a weekly dose? Is this something you do once a month as a shock to the system?
No, it's frequent. If you have cancer, it is more like it's going to be 2 to 3 times a week.
And say you don't have an active cancer, say it's out of your system.
I don't know if I'd really recommend the hassle on it and the expense. So I don't know.
It is expensive. It's $250. I've researched it and I found some around the area. It's $250 to $300 every time you go.
That's about right. But what it is here. And so I'm not sure. I've not seen the science, about just doing it like once a month, if it would have that much of an impact or not. I don't know. Good question.
Yeah. I'm just looking at what are the different options. I mean, the naturopath was trying to recommend I do it once a week to start off, and then we could kind of figure out and dose off. But my mindset is, if you do it once a week and you're seeing the benefit of it, you're not even seeing it. You're hoping for the benefit of it because you really don't understand if it did work or not, if it stuck to the ion. So if you start tapering off in 6 months, now you're tapered off from it, you're back to ground zero again, right? So Would you
Right.
do it once a month and just shock your body and hope that it would attach to something? Like it's just so many questions. I've been trying to research and study myself on it, and I'm just trying to figure out it. And I'm not I absolutely hate IVs. I hate IVs. I hate needles.
Yeah.
So me to sit there for 2.5 hours with an IV in my arm is just like, oh, do I really want to do this or not? But I'm just really at that crossroads right now with trying to understand it, and it's something like I said. I'm 9 weeks post surgery. I'm at that point where my body's healed. My doctor said don't start working out till 8 weeks. I started working out at 3 weeks, and I was just like, I'm full blown. I'm 100% back physically, right? So in my head, is this is a good opportunity to start now or not? So this is something I've been doing a lot of research. I just wanted to hear your mindset on it. So you do see the benefit of it.
Yes. Right.
Okay. Let's talk about. I want to talk about foods, but let's talk about the scary part of it all the chemicals, all the crap that's put on. I guess the new list I just saw recently, the new list of the Dirty Dozen just came out,
Right.
and where's your mindset? Could you? And I every time I get our vegetables, every time I get our fruits, I've started now for the last 2-3 months is baking soda, cold water, let it sit in there, and then wash it 2-3 times. Could you wash away most of these, or is this something where you have to go organic with everything?
Well,
And then when you're going organic, sorry, is it really organic? Are you looking at an organic farm next to a normal farm and the wind's blowing all those pesticides over anyhow? So there's so many questions. So do you need to go organic, or could you wash away all these pesticides and all these chemicals?
Ideal situation would be organic.
Okay.
And so you can't wash away all of the pesticides and chemicals. And matter of fact, a lot of those are sprayed, on the flowers, while the bees are pollinating, and it's getting into every component of that. So, and then there's the residual getting into the ground, getting into the root system, coming up in through the plant.
Yeah.
And, there's actually a lot of studies, in countries about some countries have a lot more problems with, let's say, arsenic.
Yeah.
In the ground. So metals and minerals all come from the ground. And so plants that are growing are going to absorb that. And so a lot of studies about arsenic issues in certain regions of the world, and they have a lot higher risks of certain types of cancers. And so even if you went with organic, we still have that arsenic issue. And some people it's in the water, some areas of regions of the world. So yes, number one, yes, washing is important. Washing and trying to buy local from maybe a farmer that when you can, very important, and find out what they do. Hopefully, you have to have some trust there.
Yeah, of course.
And then so basically, I just recommend my clients just do the best that you can. If you can afford it and can go organic, that's going to be the best option. And yes, is it really organic? They're to be labeled. You're not supposed to be using organic chemicals, but how long has the land not been exposed to that? And so, matter of fact, so this house that we bought a few years ago and that we live in now, the lady that we bought it from, a friend of ours, even, we came up to meet her one night to start looking at things, and she was out spraying a bad chemical, killing the weeds in the cracks on the concrete on the driveway. And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I know I shouldn't be doing it, but I just hate these weeds." I was like, that just runs. I mean, that's just wrong. And so, yes, even though I'm trying to grow, last night I posted about blackberries. I transplanted my plants, from the other place I lived. I didn't know what they did for 50 or 100 years, on that property. So I'm trying to do the best that I can. And matter of fact, most studies don't go into the organic. So a lot of people say, well, you should do organic. Yeah, you should. But were the studies done on organic? Like in the studies that I'm promoting and talking about? No. So the benefits of the fruits and vegetables and foods it doesn't have to be organic. There's still these other beneficial chemicals that can help us. So matter of fact, I think of like fruits and vegetables as providing kind of like antioxidants, vitamin C and other things. But these antioxidants physically repair our cells and our DNA, everything about our body. So fruits and vegetables are critical. Even like a keto I don't promote ketogenic because most people don't get enough fruits and vegetables when they do that. And so we got to repair our body with those nutrients.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I
So that
agree.
is that enough on the organic or what other
Yeah,
topics?
yeah. It's just a hard topic, right? I mean, you're
Sure.
not exactly what you exactly said that you're buying organic, and truly, are you really buying organic? Because they don't spray.
Right.
How was the soil? Was it treated? Like, it's
Right.
just so much questions, and somebody going through a situation like myself, you question everything.
Sure. And we just have to do the best that we can.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Agreed.
just trust that, okay, I I I'm doing the well, I am doing the best. I picked out the best thing I could. I couldn't get organic on that one, but I'm going to go ahead and enjoy it. I need it.
How
So yeah.
how is your mindset with red meat?
So and now Oklahoma, cattle country. so and so so red meat controversy
Yeah,
definitely, but um, red meat has a tendency, how they feed out the cattle. Now I'm blessed, so mine are close to organic, not ideal, but close to organic. I do eat some red meat, and so we do get a calf. My friend, I went riding on his property Sunday. He's got cattle. We
yeah,
went riding around and watching the cows and chasing them and playing and stuff like that. And so I do eat some red meat. I do not eat as much
okay,
because definitely study after study after study shows that red meat increases the risk of cancer, but some of that might be the way that it's cooked.
yeah,
So high temperature
yep,
is a major problem. I love to grill
of course,
foods outside. We're getting into that time now. It's we've had some evenings where it's like 80 degrees. Oh, just love it. Go outside, go grill dinner outside, sit on the back porch. We have almost like a park view,
yeah,
looking out, and I love doing that. But I cook my steak, or meat at right at 350 degrees, and I don't cook them well done.
yeah,
So there are studies showing that the more done the meat
of course, yeah,
increases the risk of cancer. The more browned or blackened the meat, the more toxic chemicals, heterocyclic amines, are forming, and those are cancer causing. And actually, it's like, people say, "Well, I've been eating like that my whole life. I don't got cancer." Well, there's also some genetics involved, and so I do genetic testing and found
yeah,
out with myself I have a difficult time getting rid of those toxic chemicals, and they're going to build up in my system. So I don't eat as much smoked barbecue because that smoked meat is a significant issue for me. So we did go to a barbecue place the other night. We have a group of us that we go out to eat every Friday night, and I had to work late. So we did meet at a place, and I did have, and usually I try to go with something that's not going to be burnt. So I'll go with more like a chicken breast, or some pulled pork, and not the brisket, and not the ribs, to help try to decrease that blackened
yeah,
part. That blackened part is probably the worst part of red meat. And so I hope we're going to go into this. We will now. So, but I like a balanced diet. I think we've got
yeah,
to do everything.
yeah,
So I encourage my clients to have animal protein like once a day,
yeah,
and that's okay. And then definitely, we need to be eating legumes for other. We got to have protein. Protein's
yeah,
critical.
hundred
You got to
percent.
have legumes, and then nuts and seeds. And then often, it depends on the kind of body person and body type and activity level. Protein powders,
Yeah,
are great sources to make a fruit protein and oil smoothie. I've got downloads on my website about that. Like a smoothie. Here's a smoothie you can make, and so those are great options. So we can still get all these things without eating animal protein 3 times a day. At every meal, for me, well, I'm not going to do it.
yeah. I mean, my diet is very. I mean, like I said, I do a keto Mediterranean kind of balance, but I do have a certain amount of vegetables every day, a certain amount of fruit every single day. I try to balance your beans and your greens and all that stuff. But red meat, and I'll talk about this in a sec. But red meat, I only have two sources of red meat. I wouldn't even call one of them. I have liver every 6 to 7 days, 6 days. And then I have a grass-fed ground beef where I'll make either meatballs or a burger, and I'll make it in the oven. And I do that that's almost my treat. And I do that so I do meat maybe once a week, red meat once a week. I have wild fish 3 to 4 times a week. I have organic chicken 2 to 3 times a week. I have organic turkey. So I balance it out with my proteins, and I do usually have 1 or 2 shakes a day as well. So I try to balance out as much as I possibly can, and then I get protein through other stuff like hemp seed and other forms of protein as well, right? So yeah, you have to have balance. You'll go crazy.
Exactly.
But with the red meat, when I look at my train for 2 years, besides I went through a situation where I had a high stress level for about 6 to 7 months when my father passed away. I was sleeping maybe 1 or 2 hours a night, but I went on, which I think might be a big trigger to what happened to me, is I went on a 9-month quote unquote carnivore diet, and I was eating pretty much red meat 2 to 3 times a day for about 9 months. And a lot of it was barbecue, because you love your barbecue, and you're taught growing up barbecue's healthy.
Right.
Barbecue is healthy. That's all I'd always hear. Don't fry your food. Barbecue is healthy, and that's all you would hear. And when you go on these protein diets, and there's a lot of, with social media, there's so many of these carnivore guys out there that are just pushing these carnivore diets, and they're all about going to. They give you examples of going to your local 7-Eleven and grabbing pepperoni sticks or having hot dogs, or as long as you have protein. So to be honest, when I look at my training, I look at my last 2, I looked at like that, those 9-month period about a year and a half ago, I was having, I don't care, it was protein. If it was a hot dog, if I was on the go to a meeting or two for work, I would stop at the variety store and grab a whole bunch of pepperoni sticks. It was processed shit in my body. It was processed meat. And then when it wasn't processed, it was on the Barbie. It was, and I wasn't marinating. I would put on some salsa, pepper. Marinating is another great way. We can talk about that too. Actually helping eliminate some of the issues with cooking red meat over a high thing, right? So I wasn't doing things right. And when you're eating red meat or having some form of protein from either a processed meat or not, 2 to 3 times a day, not good at all. And I physically, I was in great shape. I looked great. I was healthy from the physical outside, but obviously it was causing damage inside, right?
Yes, exactly. And one of the worst actually meats is going to, and meat, I classify that as any animal flesh, but including fish, turkey, poultry, whatever. So, but the worst is the preserved meats.
Yeah, 100%.
The nitrates, nitrites, when those are cooked, those turn into nitrosamines, increased risk of colon, colorectal cancers. And so those are the worst.
And everybody loves their bacon.
Yes. And so now you can get uncured bacon.
Yeah. But it has to be uncured, because a lot of, there's companies out there that are selling nitrate free, but they're not. They still have the same. They use other chemicals in there that do pretty much the same thing, if worse.
So they'll say natural cured.
Yes,
and it's one of them. But that actually is, they're getting the nitrates from beets and celery.
Yes, which is actually higher levels.
Yeah, but now that's another thing. I'm gonna have a book about that. About nitrates. So now there can be good things, but when it's cooked, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it turns into nitrosamines. It doesn't make a difference whether it's natural, or not natural nitrates, but when they're heated, they turn into nitrosamines. That is cancer causing, especially for the gut, issue all the way down, And so those are, some of the worst. So the balance is extremely critical.
Yeah. Incredible. So let's talk about fruits and vegetables. And what are your go-to? Give me your top 5 go-tos for cancer prevention. Let's talk about prevention, cancer prevention. Give me your top 5 go-tos.
So prevention and treatment really. And so the berries, blackberries, post last night about that, extremely important. And typically the darker the fruit or vegetables, the more antioxidants that are in them.
Yeah.
So I'm really leaning toward those. So definitely, blackberries, blueberries are probably some of the better ones, especially if you can go organic.
Yeah.
And you can definitely find organic. And frozen fruits and vegetables are okay. I mean, they're wonderful. If you can't get fresh, I do not hesitate to get frozen.
Now,
Because
quick question on that. So, I mean, there's a lot of things I've been reading too. I mean, when you're dealing with a frozen vegetable or fruit, sometimes it's actually fresher than an actual grocery store one.
Could be.
But is there any other preservatives or anything put into those frozen bags of fruit to preserve them, or just they're frozen on freshness? Like, so you're getting a better benefit from them?
Well, you have to read the ingredients, but I mean, they don't
say nothing. There is no. They never list. If it's blueberries, they'll just list blueberries, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, and that's where we have to do the best we can.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm going to try to go with organic when I can. I did buy some the other night that weren't organic, and I will consume those. But we try to go with organic where we can. And the theory behind the frozen is that they will pick those close to the farm.
Yeah.
When they're ripe. And so the plant has a natural ability to develop all of its nutrients. And then they take it and they process it close to the farm.
Yeah.
Instead of shipping it all the way across, from coast to coast, 2 or 3 days of shipment to get it someplace.
Yeah.
And then not counting the chemicals that they may use it on those while they're shipping it or after it's gotten there to make it ripen faster. That happens too.
Yeah.
And so, on the fresh type items. So, frozen is definitely an option. I try to get, fresh when I can, but, there are certain times of the year, dead of winter, I would rather get some frozen that I feel safer with it organic versus something that came in from a country from the South that has warmer weather that we don't know for sure what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
With that. So yes, on that. And then, most, let's see, probably, other vegetables like salads and greens. And so salad type things. So whatever you can put in a salad. So any green, whether it be spinach and chard and cabbage and lettuce and celery and all of these things. Now this comes into the nitrate issue. So they have antioxidants that repair the body, but also part of this issue with a tumor cell. So we got cancer cells, they form a tumor. And so they have a tendency to create, their own little blood vessels, but that doesn't start happening. And they don't start really going like get hypersonic growth, high fast growth. That starts happening when there's not enough oxygen. And then they start going crazy and developing and even, kind of changing their DNA and growing. And so there's definitely some new things that we're looking at. If we can go with, foods that contain plant nitrates, nitrate opens up blood vessels, improves circulation, and keeps it from going into that, what they call hypoxic state in the cancer cell. So cancer cells seem to love an acid environment and low oxygen. And that's when it starts taking off and growing like real fast. So if we can open up the blood supplies overall in our body, it seems to reduce the risk of cancers and things like that. So, but the nitrates, if we cook them, they turn bad. Okay. So we have to have that. There's a type of a balance on that. So, salads, I think, are probably the number one vegetable, if you want to call it that. Anything you put in a salad. So, and variety is important.
Yeah, your greens.
Just eating lettuce every day, that's not going to work. We're going to get tired of it.
Yeah.
So variety is important. So I encourage a salad every single day, and putting whatever else you can put in that. All of those foods are also anti-cancer. So everything, and you can put meat in it if you want, or you can definitely go with legumes, beans, nuts,
Yeah.
and seeds.
Egg, organic eggs.
Yeah. Okay. So one eggs. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I only allow my clients to have eggs once a week.
Interesting.
Okay. So frequent egg consumption does increase the risk for several cancers. Not all cancers, but it's enough of an issue that, unless I can have a person's specific cancer, I'm just saying you can have egg. I eat eggs once a week. I used to have chickens, but whenever my wife actually had a spot in her lung and a couple of mammograms, it's scary. It's okay. We've got to buckle down, so we're not going to do the chickens anymore because eggs have growth factors, and growth factors, insulin growth factor, and other things for that baby to grow in adults may not be appropriate. And so eggs, I limit eggs to once a week. I definitely will eat a couple of eggs, but no more than once a week.
Okay, I've never heard that before. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. So I do have one post about that, and but yeah, it's not like I can say that for each and every cancer, but
which are from your research are the cancers that
I believe it's actually kind of like the more frequent ones. And if I remember correctly, it's going to be more like breast cancer. Breast cancer is stimulated by growth chemicals. Prostate cancer, growth chemicals.
So anything tumor based.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Right. Interesting. Because I use eggs quite a bit. I'm going to be honest with you. I probably have eggs 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah. Well,
organic. They're free range organic, but the brown free range organic, but still, it's interesting. I'm going to do my research on that as well. I mean, it's interesting saying that because I would never put that together. I mean, you're looking at, I even once a week have raw, in my shake, I'll put the raw, just started this. I put the raw egg yolk for the vitamin B6 and the benefit of it. Right. So yeah. Okay. Interesting. I'm going to do some research on that. It's so hard because you've said this more than once throughout this whole podcast, Keith, is you got to do your best because I'm taking 16, 17 supplements a day. I'm doing everything I possibly could do. And it's still never 100%. You're still going to get, you're still going to get stuff in you're still going to pesticides. You can't control all these things.
Sure.
You can't control. I mean, if you sit there and focus on, I can only have 1 egg a week. I can only have this once a week. You're not living a proper balanced life. You have to have some kind of push back and forth, right? I mean, I eliminated sugar since November 23rd, I haven't had a sweet. I mean, I have put 0 sugar or 0 processed food in my body since I found that out. But you're still, once again, how much fruit are you having? How's your body's insulin spikes when you're having all this fruit? Are you having insulin spikes when you're having carbs? Do you want to look at what time of the night you're having your carbs? There's so much going into it. So you just have to do your best. That's all it is. And I love that you've said that so many times throughout this podcast.
Right. Yeah. Probably the number one thing about foods is I call it a palm rule.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if we have more than 3 palms of food at one time, we're going to get too much food at that sitting. So, typically it's 1 palm of protein and then 2 palms of fruits and vegetables. I consider to be the ideal situation. So now it can vary. So if you're having legumes or beans, you actually need more like 2 palms of that to get enough protein for that meal. But then that only allows 1 more palm of food.
Yeah.
So just to try to help out. So, I'm not perfect and
no one could be.
And I enjoy food and my associates at the pharmacy, I mean, they know that, and my friends know that, the family know that, but then I'm careful about quantities. And so I want to, keep from getting excess body fat. I want to keep from, supplying, if I may have a cancer cell, from supplying too much of a carbohydrate or a sugar, to feed that situation. So I'm very careful about that. But the palm rule is probably the number one thing, more important than even like I've posted about white potatoes.
Yeah.
and can be a concern because they're very starchy. When a white potato is cooked, the glycemic index on it goes up comparable to sugar.
Yeah, I haven't had a white since November 23rd. I haven't had a white potato, and believe me, I love my home fries. And
Yeah.
and we still cook them. We still get potatoes, and my wife made on the weekend home fries for the kids, and I was like, oh, I really want those. But in my head, I'm like, I almost feel guilty. I feel like if I have them,
Right. Yeah.
it's going to come back and bite me, which is probably the stupidest way to think of it. But it's just right now, maybe because it's so fresh. Eventually, I'll start having moderation of it. But yeah, I haven't had. That's one thing I've eliminated, especially because of the cancer I had. White potatoes, right? I mean, I have my sweet potato yam.
Yes.
But which is vegetable. Yeah, I have that. But I mean, yeah, white potatoes is something I've pushed away from. I'm gonna give me two more go-to foods, and then I want to ask you one thing about fasting and something I'm really really focused on. But let's give me two more quick foods, and then we'll move on to that.
Well, let's see. Actually, I like coffee and tea.
Okay,
coffee and green tea. That's a food.
And how do you have your coffee? Black. Yeah, me too. Yeah. That's why I have only. I bet I've had that for years.
Yeah, and not no sugars. And actually, I do like stevia, monk fruit. You can use those to sweeten if you have to have that. Yeah. And so those are definitely some foods. And then let's see. Gosh, I'm planting my garden, and so I'm just thinking about all of that. So beets.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, but we think of beets as actually a source of carbohydrates. Okay. They have the nitrates, but there's a lot of studies showing that people that consume beets have reduced risk of cancer.
Okay.
And so, but we have to be careful with that quantity. Once again,
you're talking about just a little red beets.
A beetroot, and so typically it's going to be more like that big around.
Yeah,
it is smaller.
Yeah, and smaller. And they have the root out.
Root out. Yeah, and they could be smaller. That's great. Yeah, some of them could be like that size. Yeah,
and you have them in salads and whatnot.
Exactly. Yes, and so very important. So I have another kind of a rule. If it's white, maybe you shouldn't take a bite. Okay. So bread.
Oh, okay. I thought you put the beet inside. No.
So other foods, not to do, but it's more like the darker ones that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Those are what have the antioxidants and many other chemicals that repair our body, keep the damage from occurring. Yeah. That allows the cancer cell or help our body to detox and repair, type of a thing. So, but beets and even celery, peaches. I can't really just limit one vegetable.
No, it's a variety. It's a variety of smart mixing of them, right? And you're trying to get as much nutrient as you possibly can of all. It's funny you're saying that because one of my for my lunch I brought today, I made a salad and it has beets, celery, broccoli sprout, and baby spinach.
Yeah, perfect.
And I just put I literally put a little olive oil on in there. I'm good to go. And that's one of my things for lunch today. So I love that. And it's just mixing up and trying different foods. And it's like, there's now that I've gone this route of really, really focusing on vegetables and fruits, and you start to appreciate the taste of them. At first, you're like, ugh, but once you start eating them, your body seems to really learn to enjoy it,
right?
And enjoy the crunchiness or enjoy the texture of it, and it's I find it enjoyable. Like I can't see myself ever going back to the way I ate. Like I'm enjoying the variety, I'm enjoying the vegetables, I'm enjoying the freshness, I'm enjoying the freshness of the area too. So you could eat seasonal, which I think is a great thing to do.
Yes, definitely
to your area, right? Fasting. Something I played around with before. I've done it for years on and off, but since I found this out, I mean, I've now gone to 7 days a week. I intermediate fast. I try to get my minimal 16 hours. Some days I go up to 18, but I try to do my minimal 16 every day from 7:30. I cut off my food, and I usually eat around 11:30 to 12:30 the next day. Where's your mindset with? And there's so much studies behind it, but where's your mindset with intermediate fasting or fasting in general?
I love it. Okay. Yeah. I do it myself. Okay. I fast for 16 hours and eat in an 8-hour window or so.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens. I may have to go longer than that. And actually, just due to busy. You know, oh, it's my lunchtime.
Yeah.
Here, patient's got a question. You
Yeah.
know, I've got to go get that. And
Yeah.
but I can definitely do that. You know, the first, basically kind of like at 12 hours is when I'm going, I'm hungry.
And then it passes and you don't even think about it. Yeah.
It passes. Matter of fact, I'll just drink, I'll drink a little coffee. That's my second cup of coffee.
This is my black coffee. I'm just zipping on it.
Yeah. Drink some coffee, and that just kind of helps settle my stomach. And then after an hour or so of that, I mean, it's gone.
Yeah.
And then I have done, a couple of day fasts, and just with liquids.
Yeah.
And can definitely do it. And I'm pretty lean. I'm built about like you, and I'm pretty lean. And but definitely can do it and feel great doing it. The only time I don't do that is if I'm having to do manual labor. If I'm out, even just, I can ride the horses, but if I'm having to work my friend's cattle, I probably will have maybe eggs for breakfast. Okay? Yeah. And so I've got to get some calories in and some nutrients, because I'll burn up my muscles.
Yeah. Yeah.
To get to those carbohydrates that are glycogen that's stored in the muscles and the liver. And so I can lose a muscle mass, pretty quick, because I don't have a lot of body fat.
Yeah.
But
I'm very similar to you.
Oh yeah. But there's definitely medical research supporting that, and even showing that intermittent fasting, or a lot of times I call it timed eating. So that's the name of one of my reports, is timed eating can actually enhance the effectiveness of chemotherapy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I'm a big proponent of it. And so my fast is actually, and when I get off at 6 I leave the pharmacy at 6. I don't get home till 6:35 or so.
Yeah.
And then it's time to eat. So it's kind of like nighttime is my social time with the family, my wife. And so that's when we eat.
Yeah.
And so therefore I don't eat until 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So with that, but I do perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm the same thing. I usually, like I said, my cutoff is usually between 7:30 in the evening, and I usually am good till 11:30 till 12:30 the next day. And there's sometimes, like you said, you're busy, you're not focused, and all of a sudden you're running around at the office, and it's like 1:00 or 1:30, and I haven't eaten yet, and it happens, and your body just adjusts to it. You don't even think about it, right? And
exactly. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I do love intermittent fasting.
Yeah. And so many benefits to it.
Exactly. For me, I've also done the version where you do 2 days a week. But
I haven't done that yet. And that's something I'm starting to look more into. I mean, I'm at that mindset where I'm going to probably start maybe once a month doing a 24-hour fast. And just to get to that level of your body at getting the peak opportunity for your body just to really cleanse itself. I'm going to probably start doing that maybe once a month, and then I'll see. I mean, there's so much studies, even doing the 2 to 3 day, like you're saying, the 2 to 3 day fast, even every few months. There's so much benefits to it. I mean, there's even studies that show even just it just resets your DNA in a way. I mean, there's people that do the 5-day fast. I mean, there's so much benefits to it, right?
It helps normal cells to die the way they're supposed to. It helps cells to grow the way they're supposed to. It helps cancer cells to die the way they're supposed to. It's amazing.
The easiest way somebody explained, or whether I heard it through a podcast from explained to me with fasting, is your body has 2 functions it's doing. It's either digesting food or it's healing. And if your body is constantly, you're feeding it, it's constantly working on digesting food. And if it's empty, now it has an opportunity to heal. And how they explained it to me, there's like, when you're sick and your body needs to naturally heal, are you hungry? And I said, no. And I said, that kind of makes sense. And that was an easy explanation to me. And I was like, that kind of just made me more wanting to understand about fasting. And that's where I kind of started really looking into it. And this is a while ago. So what I was doing in the past was, prior to finding out what I had, I would do usually fasting Monday to Friday. And then on the weekend, I break my fast. I would break it because home with the kids, I want to have breakfast with the kids Saturday and Sunday. Since November 23rd, it's been 7 days a week. I don't even play around with it anymore. And I work out on weekends, empty stomach. And my energy levels are still super high. Like I honestly feel like I have more energy on when I'm fasting than I do after, right? And that's because obviously the carbs and the food just slow you down, right? So tons of benefits to it. And so I'm happy that you are a believer in the fasting as well.
Oh yeah,
you do. Is there anything you want to leave our audience with?
Oh, let's see. Well, make little changes. And because I know we talked about a ton of stuff today,
Yeah.
and it's overwhelming, even just following my almost daily posts, on social media. I know it could get overwhelming,
Yeah.
but every you mentioned a couple of times, it's just like, okay, this little change, this one thing, can have a dramatic impact.
Yeah.
And so, we if you do have cancer, you can't keep doing the same thing you were doing and expect different outcomes.
Yeah.
Okay? So, if you have a tire that is worn because alignment's bad, and you replace the tire, the next one's going to be bad too. You got to straighten that up.
I
You,
love that you said that. That's a great analogy.
you got to straighten it up. Otherwise, you're going to keep having the same problem.
Yeah.
So we have to do the same thing too. We may not know exactly what the problem is, but we need to start making changes. And then for me, it's like, and even though I'm not perfect, but it's like, ah, I did a good job with that today. I did make some changes,
Yeah.
and so and I'm doing the best that I can,
Yeah.
and it's easy to relax and go to sleep at night, and knowing I did the best I could, and making little changes.
I think a lot of things too. I mean, whether you are diagnosed, whether you went through a scare, um, I found at the beginning is just having a journal and writing down. I started writing down when I went to the bathroom, what I ate that day, how I felt, and I could kind of just really start adding things in and subtracting things, and that was a way of me really seeing what the results were, and I could actually look back and say, last week this is where I felt. This how many times I went to the bathroom, and really just you don't have to do it forever, but just to get a rhythm going, because
Hmm.
it could be very overwhelming because you're looking at taking aloe vera juice or water, or let's take this supplement, or let's add Brazilian nuts, or it's just so much. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I got to go buy this. I got to go to the grocery store and buy this. And it's like you have like this cabinet in the kitchen full of all these
Sure.
things. You're like, okay, I got to take this to this time. I got to take this to this time. They take this time. Oh, now my stomach is upset. It's that process of elimination. It's a process of really learning, and it might take months and months. I've only been 9 weeks post surgery, and I'm still learning my system. I'm
Sure.
still learning how to read, because everything was moved around in me. I got to learn how to go to the bathroom again, how to digest my food again. I was lucky enough that I was supposed to get a colonoscopy bag, and because I took such good care of myself, my tissue, everything was so healthy. I wasn't needing one. I was going to have one from
Good. Oh,
6 months to a year, and we went into surgery. They grabbed the Sharpie and they marked where the bag was going to be, and I'm like, I'm 40. I was at that time, I just turned 46. I was a couple weeks.
Hmm.
I turned 46 a couple weeks before surgery. I'm like, I'm 46 years old. I'm going to have to walk around with a bag for the next 6 months to a year. And I'm like, not worst case scenario. I'm still alive. I'm still here, but I really don't want this. And because of everything I did prior, and I took such good care of myself, the tumor had shrunk a bit and my tissue was so healthy and the surgery went so well. It went from a 4.5 hour, 2 surgeons to a 3 hour surgery. And it's because I took care of myself for those 3 months prior. And I did everything right for those 3 months prior. So it shows the benefit of really taking care of yourself, whether you have something or you don't have something. The prevention aspect is so massive, and if
Right.
and it's so sad that most people will only start living a better lifestyle when they are diagnosed or when they do find out. And then there's the pure opposite, where they have that mindset where I'm going to do my surgery if they're lucky enough to be able to do surgery, or I'm going to do my chemo, I'm going to do my radiation, and I'll be fine, and not
Hmm.
changing none of their lifestyles. And you sit there and like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Right. Yeah. I see that wide range. But it's kind of like at the very beginning we first started talking today. It was about how many people aren't doing the right thing, and so they're just accepting what the doctor says, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And so in the country we have a saying is that, well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're sharing this information, and thank you for sharing your story, because that's going to help other guys. Guys are bad,
Yeah.
about
Well,
taking.
that's a big part of my journey going
Yeah.
forward with my platform and my audience is, and I haven't really started yet. I have a plan for it, but I do want to be a big advocate and men testing. And I was
Yes.
before. It was crazy. I have had posts even a year ago, like, hey, go do your blood work, go take care of yourself. Mind
Right.
you, when I sit down and look at my terrain, and that's another thing too, is people don't sit down and look at what their lifestyle truly is.
Right.
Right. I mean, and now that I sit back and I was able to really focus on the last 2 years of my life and look at my stress levels, my lack of sleep, and running around my head cut off as an entrepreneur with 2 companies. Now I can sit back and be like, shit, I thought I was living a good life. Maybe I wasn't.
Right.
So really sitting down and really focusing on even the last 12 months of your life, like how many hours you're sleeping. I have my Apple Watch. I put on at nighttime, and I'm monitoring my REM sleep, my deep sleep. I'm trying to get minimal 8 hours of sleep. There's so much things we're not even talked about that we could probably go on for another 2-3 hours here. But it's there's so many little things that you could make a change to, and the benefits are drastic, right?
That's right. Yes, and remember, you have some, a couple of great downloads about your life, about your routine.
Yeah.
Starting the day and ending the day. And some great downloads for that. And so, yes, and our body loves routines.
Yeah.
And so we do need that. And journaling and those type of things are wonderful.
I love it. We're going to get a hold of you, find the Palm rule, find all this stuff about you.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah. Get those downloads.
Yeah. But give them information so we could find you.
Okay. Great. Okay. It's at prevailovercancer.com.
That's your website?
Yes, prevailovercancer.com.
And social media as well?
Social media is at Prevail Over Cancer.
I love it. I love it. This has been awesome. And I can see you being back on the show in the not too distant future. This is I have questions, and I'm sure our audiences probably have tons of questions. We'll probably have you back on, but this has been absolutely amazing. Like I said, prior to when we started this podcast, my wife introduced Keith's Instagram account, and I started watching. I'm like, tons of information there, tons of information. Sometimes overload information, but if you sit there and no, this is it's amazing, right? And you sit there and really pick and choose what of those information you could apply to your life. Even small changes at a time are going to make drastic changes over the long haul, right? So just that it's those baby steps, right? I call it the domino effect. I had somebody on my podcast when I first started a podcast, probably the first 5 episodes. We're over 200 episodes. And I remember him saying it's that domino effect, where it's just one domino every single day, and it starts adding, accumulating. And that's what it is. It's just that domino effect. We have to start somewhere, and as we start going, the momentum starts building. We start learning and educating ourselves. And I'm sure you've reread this book. This is one book I'm going to just throw out there to our audience. It's called A Metabolic Approach to Cancer. Have you heard of this book before?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Incredible information in that book. So much information that you could probably really, I read that book now twice, and I have probably about 50% of that book highlighted and pages folded out, because there's so much information you could really intake, and stuff that we talked about today as well. So great book as well. This has been awesome. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we're going to keep in contact and help each other as well in the future.
Definitely, Jeff. Thank you. I appreciate it.